It sounds like a succession of misfortune. Sounds like excuses, but are you telling me that's just mining? Is there anything there that you could have done or should have done?
You can sit back and second guess yourself all day. I tend not to do that. I try to figure out what my mistakes have been and go ahead. You can only move forward. This is going to happen. I've got the government pushing me to get the permits done. They want us in there.
Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up and do leave your comments below. It just helps us understand what you're thinking, what questions you'd like us to ask, and indeed your thoughts on the company. And if you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to Greg Romain, who is the CEO of Gowest Gold. They're a Canadian developer. They're 10 years in the making, and they will admit to having made a number of mistakes along the way. They've also missed a number of deliverables and targets. So I think the market is slightly nervous, hence the low capitalization of the company. However, they think they're quite close now to being able to deliver some value back to shareholders. Take a look in the description below at some of the topics we discuss and cover off. Anything interesting in particular, click on that timestamp. That'll take you to that part of the video. Let's hear what Greg had to say. Hello, Greg. How are you, sir?
Fine, Matthew. Thank you for inviting me on to your program today.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. So where are you at the moment?
I'm locked up at home in Toronto and but working hard.
Not bad. So what's the weather like in Toronto?
Today it's partially sunny and the winds are about 70 kilometers an hour on the gusts, so it's still a north wind, so it's still a little frigid, but the sun's out. There's no snow in Toronto, thank God.
Oh, crikey. Every time I go there, I actually don't have the clothes to deal with the cold. Anyway, I'm glad things are nice and sunny there. Right, Greg, today we're going to talk about Gowest. So why don't you kick off, give us that 1 minute overview, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Sure. Gowest Gold is a TSX-V listed public company. Ticker symbol is GWA. Gowest has a 120 kilometer land package up in Timmins, Ontario, which is known as a city with the heart of gold. We are developing the Bradshaw Deposit into the next new gold mine in the Timmins camp. We expect to be processing our bulk sample by the early third quarter of this year, heading into production by mid 2021.
Wow. Okay. I'm looking at your share price the last 5 years. Last year it's been heading down. What I want from you today is I want to understand the plan. How are you going to change things around? Because if you're talking about getting into production, that's pretty exciting, especially if it's 2021 production. So why don't we kick off with when did you get involved? What's your involvement with this to date?
I got involved 12 years ago. I was asked to come over and build a mine. And my background is I'm a chemical engineer by schooling. Never really practiced it. Ended up running an iron and steel foundry, took them public as an income trust, and sold them to a private equity group. And the iron and steel foundry produced consumable products. And I got to know a lot of the top metallurgists and mining people over the course of a 12-year career at that other company. So then the fellow that asked me to come over and look at it, I said, okay. He was a geophysics engineer. I said he'd been involved in another larger discovery back in the 60s up in the Timmins camp. And so I invited a number of people that I know to come and have a look at this. And they all said that this was a diamond in the rough and it was a big opportunity. So on that, I decided to jump in with both feet and go at it. That's how it kind of all started.
And you are CEO today. Did you come in that position, in that role?
Yes, I came in as president CEO in 2008, officially 2008. And I was helping him out a little bit before 2008, but officially 2008.
Okay, so like I said, I do want to get into this. So why don't you tell us about what 2008, what were you brought in to do? What was the plan then? And has it evolved? Has it had to evolve since then?
So the plan was to, when I took over the company, it was a 500,000 ounce indicated resource at about 5 to 6 grams. And the goal was to grow it to at least 1 million ounces and then undertake a bulk sample. Easier said than done. This was 2008, and you know what happened in 2008. So the Bradshaw deposit, which we call today, was known as the Frankfield East deposit, and it was a joint venture between Gowest and a privately held company. So I rolled in, the fellow that owned the private company rolled his half into Gowest, and that we completed that in early 2000, mid 2009, and at the end of 2009 we raised $6.5 million, and then undertook a large drill program in 2010. On the back of that, we put together a PEA in, I believe, 2011, 2012. And then following that, we got the resource up to about 1.2 million ounces. And then including indicated ounces and inferred ounces. And then in 2015, we undertook a pre-feasibility study with Stantec. Again, this is all high level. On the back of that, we went out and raised $17.6 million debt of New York in order to take us through to from production, bulk sample into production. This was 2017. December 2017, we signed the loan agreement. 2018, they funded us the first tranche of $6 million US. That was February of 2018, and then we started underground development at the site. Again, it was a greenfield site. There was never a mine there. At the same time, we entered, and this will kind of answer your question about what happened to the stock price. When we announced that, at the same time we announced in 2017 that we signed a definitive agreement to acquire 50% of a processing mill in the Timmins camp called the Redstone Mill. So off we go. We get underground. We've done about 2 kilometers of development, and then in early 2018, the controlling shareholders of the mill had a reorganization. They were owned by a group out of China that were partially state-owned. They had a whole reorg and decided that they didn't want to continue on with the agreement. So the agreement, we signed a definitive agreement. There were some conditions that needed to be satisfied, and those were some of the permitting. And we were close on getting those permits. And then they had the reorg in China and said, we don't want to close the deal. And there we are. So we're at the face of the bulk sample. No mill. We've got mixed development ore on surface, and everything comes to a grinding halt. So that's mid 2018. So then for the next 18 months or more, we have no place to process. At the end of 2018, late fall 2018, I found another mill in Quebec that could process a bulk sample. They hadn't run in a number of years, so it would take a little bit of effort to get it up and running, plus that we had to get permits. Our largest shareholders are out of China. They own 42%, a private group, 4 individuals. They had visited the mill where we were going to acquire 50%. They really liked that mill, and it's a great mill. That mill never really operated. It was built about 12 years ago as well for a nickel deposit, but they never really ran it at all because nickel prices fell. The deposit wasn't a great deposit, and it all ended. Yet there was a mill, right, that would serve the purpose for us. But our largest shareholders said, look, we'll put in more money, but we need a place to process because the link is broken, as you can appreciate. So we ended up signing a toll milling agreement with the group in Quebec, a mill in Quebec. They visited in December 2018, came back and said, Greg, that mill's old, it's too far. And I said, but it'll work for the bulk sample. They said, we really want that other mill. I said, the only way that's going to happen is you're going to have to negotiate a deal in China. Fast forward to October 2019, an individual bought the mill from the group in China. And this individual is an arm's length to our largest shareholders, but very well known to them, right? So they bought it for the sole purpose of processing Bradshaw. So, I had an 18, 20-month delay, and now we're back at the mill where we should have been originally. That being said, that mill is now just finalizing the permits. So we expect to be processing our bulk sample beginning of Q3.
Okay.
And then from there, head into pre-production and then production.
So it sounds like a succession of misfortune to me.
Yeah, things happen.
Or excuses. It sounds like excuses. But are you telling me that's just mining? That kind of thing happens, or could you have planned it better? Was there anything there that you could have done or should have done?
I mean, you can always sit back and say should-haves, could-haves, would-haves, right? The one thing which you have to understand is the gold we're processing is an arsenopyrite refractory gold. It is the Bradshaw deposit is 100% refractory, and for the listeners out there, refractory gold is the same type of gold that Barrick and Newmont process in Nevada, and Newmont today, which is the old Gold Corp Red Lake up at Red Lake, part of that deposit is a refractory gold. So we needed a flotation mill, and unfortunately, most of the gold mills in the Timmins camp, well, most of them, all of them, don't have flotation because they have free milling gold. So we identified the Redstone mill, which was the right thing to do and it was the right way to go. We had, just to back up a bit, we were talking to Kid Creek Mine, which is a base metal mine. They had a full line that they used for one of their operations that they shut down, which is owned by Glencore today. We looked at that early days, even before we got a PEA done. We were looking at that again because I have relationships up in the Timmins area. They liked the thesis. The problem is once we started looking at our mining and the tons, the mill was just too large for what we needed to do, and so the better mill was the Redstone mill. So there, unless you were going to go back and just be an exploration and drill, and never really take it into production, then you could say, well, that wasn't a good tactic. But at the time, it made sense. And again, because we lost the mill in mid 2018, it kind of set us back, the 18 months or whatever. Because at that time, the market cap started to move, and we were hitting like $60-70 million market cap. Again, technically, nothing's changed. The gold is still there. As a matter of fact, you could argue it's probably good we didn't find it because the price of gold's gone up through the roof. And when we did the PFS, we did it at 1,200 US gold, and our IRR was about 27%. And if you take the same, it was 1,200 US, 80 cent exchange rate. Today, you're more than 100% IRR, right, on the same project, right? So, again, you can sit back and second guess yourself all day. I tend not to do that. I try to figure out what my mistakes have been and go ahead. You can only move forward. You can't change what happened yesterday.
I do want to get all the stuff out of the way, which the kind of red flags out of the way. So back in August, there was a massive dip, and it kind of recovered fairly quickly, not up to the same heights. The PGB Timmins the default situation. What was happening? So I guess that's all connected, but tell me about that.
So the PGB, the way they run their fund is it was a prepaid gold loan. They would loan us up to 17.6 million US, and then they gave us a 27-month holiday until we reach production. Then we start paying back in gold over a 5-year period, and then they're out. But because of the delay and because of the issues around the mill, they didn't fund us anything after the 6 million. So we continued to raise money in the marketplace, and then in 2019, the Chinese investors invested 2 million in March, and then put another 8 million in July, and then in August, Pandion called the loan, right? So then we ended up negotiating a settlement. Another individual out of China, along with Gowest, put up the 9 million US to take out Pandion. Pandion wanted out, and so we ended up taking them out. And the group that has the $7 million today is a friendly. There's terms that we can buy them out, and we have a year period to buy them out at a slight premium to what they invested. And they've given us some breathing room before we have to start paying back if we don't pay back that loan.
What's that process cost you with the whole PGB, the mill falling through? The cost of the company, apart from time, which is obviously significant because it's hit your share price.
Well,
but what's the actual
time,
dollar cost?
I mean, so the just on the care and maintenance, you're looking at about 400,000 Canadian dollars a month, right? Because again, if it's just pure exploration, you can stop, turn the drill, send everybody home. When you're underground, you got 2 kilometers of development. You don't want to let the mine flood, because if you do that, then that goes into closure plans, right? So that's hence the reason for that cost. And then if you tally that up, and then I mean the time of money, like not doing anything for 18 months, there's a cost to that too. I don't know off the top exactly what that would be.
Right, but you're keen to get moving, and we will get moving with this conversation into the positive areas of what you're going to do. But
no, that's fine. The listener has to understand the background, because they look at it and say, like, what have these guys been doing, right? And anybody that, people that have been around for a while, and people that haven't listened to the story like in detail, realize that things happen, not really out of anybody's fault. It happened. But the one thing is, we never gave up, right? And always asking, are we doing the right thing? And I fortunately, I know a lot of really smart people that are a lot smarter than me, and I keep going back to them and saying, what have I done wrong? Tell me where I'm wrong. And they said, you really haven't done anything wrong, right? You got to just keep nose down, and you got to keep the belief.
I think that's right. And I admire you for answering the questions, and I want to get rid of them, because I want to be able to have you answer them properly so we can park them up. But it's always great to keep going when you're eating into the G&A, you're paying yourself a salary. Shareholders are getting nothing out of this, so shareholders will look at it from that perspective and go, sure, as long as you keep getting paid, of course you're going to get on with it. But what I want to get to is for you to be able to demonstrate and show them that you're doing the right things for them, for share price appreciation, and all of that, all those lovely phrases that CEOs love to throw around. So you used a phrase, so let me come back, let me just deal with this. So you talked about having a friendly, someone who was known to you, who took out Pandion and, for a lot of money. What does that mean? You've got a friendly, because I don't understand what that means.
So when I say it's friendly, it's an individual that's known to our largest shareholders, like they're arm's length, but they know the largest shareholders. Again, our largest shareholders, two of the individuals are mining people. They see it as a diamond in the rough, and again, they want to see this thing go through. They don't want to end up in the same situation as Pandion, where we're with you, and then they put in the 8 million, then they turn around and say, okay, we want it all, right? And we don't care about the shareholders. They care about the shareholders, they care about themselves and the other shareholders that have been around for a long time.
Who are these two guys?
It's a private individual out of China.
So two private individuals out of China, or one?
There's one individual, and then one of our Chinese board members put up some of the money as well.
Gotcha. Okay. But I noticed you've done a raise recently, which 1.6 million. It's a loan. It's quite an expensive loan. So 10% on a 1-year term.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about why you did that, and why you didn't go to one of these friendlies?
Well, this is one of the friendlies as well. The group that's putting up the 1.6 million also own the mill. They own the mill. So because again, we're living in this great time of coronavirus. Like even in China, they're having issues getting money out of China, and so they wanted to buy some time. So they got the 1.6 million. I'm also out trying to raise new funding as well to possibly take out the current lenders and see us through to production. This is what I'm doing right now.
But and again, it's just dealing with why would you do it that way? Why spend money taking out someone else? Why not raise money to actually do something? Wouldn't that be a better use of money? Wouldn't that create some kind of growth?
Well, I agree. I think we're looking at all options, right? So I mean, if you can find cheaper money to take out the 10, so be it. Then we'll do that. If it's too expensive, then we don't do it. So, we're not just like I'm just focused on one. We're looking at a number of different options and talking to a number of different groups. What I was impressed by, we kicked off right after PDAC in early March. We said we're going to kick off this financing. And then the whole corona thing happened. I thought, well, no one's going to call, no one's going to want to listen. Pleasantly surprised. I've had a number of conference calls, and there's people that are looking at our information right now, and there's interest, which I can see it in one hand because the price of gold is moving and seems to be the flavor. But on the other hand, I thought everybody would be just, hunkering down and not talking to anybody, especially someone in our situation where this, the story's a little bit complicated, but again, I go back to technically nothing has changed. The gold is still there. We actually have we got a full mine that's been built, right? Not just some little hole in the ground.
I agree with you. I think the asset side of this story is really interesting. You've got something good there, and if you can, if you can get into production next year and at the sorts of numbers that you're talking about, and gold stays somewhere in the region it is now, that would be very, very good for you. But how do you declutter? How do you tidy up the corporate structure side of things? In terms of the shareholders, the various monies out. I mean, you've spent a lot of money to date, and you're going to have to, help explain how you're going to be able to kind of recoup that value, as it were, and when that's coming. So, what are you doing about sort of the tidying up of the corporate component?
Well, I think back to, first of all, I think because some of these stories, like the Go West story, it's been around for a while now, so people kind of get tired of it, right? Because things happen for whatever reason, good or bad, management's fault, not fault, who knows, right? But at the end of the day, my belief is if we can get 1 ounce of gold through that mill, our whole life is going to change, right? And so over the next number of months, there's going to be some news releases coming out. For example, we're very close on getting our production permits. We've got very good relationship with the First Nations. The government of Ontario is still working. They're all working from home, but they're pushing because mining is an essential business, deemed essential in Ontario, and they're pushing to get permits. They're pushing to get things done. The mill is working very diligently on getting whatever requirements they need to process our ore. So as soon as we get some through there in August, even if it's 1 ounce, and we know it's going to work, then it's going to everything's going to turn, right? So right now we're stuck in this bit of a rut. Doesn't matter how much I say or what I say, people want to see some gold go through that mill, right? So the shareholders that have been here the longest, including yours truly, believe that's what's going to happen, right? And then I think at the same time, we're out, as I mentioned a bit earlier, talking to a number of different groups, looking at different structures. Can we take out the current loan at a better rate? There's groups looking at some equity, but again, our share price is getting hammered. You don't want to dilute all the current shareholders, so you're trying to find the balance, right? It's been complicated. It has not been easy.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's tough. It's been a long haul as well. You touched upon something there. You talked about yours truly. I mean, how many shares are you sitting on?
I've been diluted down, but I'm probably at about 1%.
Right. Okay. Are you buying the market at the moment?
Not right now. I'm not buying. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Are any of the management team buying at the moment?
The chairman has been buying. He's the second largest shareholder, and he's been around for about 10 years as well. And I think Fraser owns approximately about 8% of the float.
Right. And what are you going to do? What can you say to shareholders? Like say some long suffering, and I guess more importantly for the future of the business, some new shareholders coming into this thing, because market cap is wherever it's like 14 million bucks.
13 million.
Yeah. You've dropped off since you were probably double that last August before the default, and it is a fundamentally good asset, right? So what are you saying to people about how you're managing the company? And for instance, have you guys taken a pay cut? Are you saying, look, whilst times are tight, we're going to rein things in? Our G&A is as tight as it can be, given that it's a developer. What sorts of commitments are you making to the shareholders, given the current scenario in the market? Well,
I mean, we're stepping back. I mean, when you look at the 12 years that I've been here, there's the first couple of years never got paid, never got any options too, right? So I mean, it's been ongoing suffering through the whole thing. I mean, you ask why haven't I bought more stock? It's because I spent a lot of money when it was 40 cents a share and 50 cents a share, right? So I was in there buying at the high prices. So I got hammered pretty hard, but I didn't give up because I still believe once we turn the corner here, and we're close now, we're closer now than we've ever been, right? Like 18 months ago, it felt like how am I gonna get out of this thing? And then October, when the mill was bought by Friendlies, and they want us in there. As a matter of fact, they said, if Go West wants to buy the mill, you can buy the mill. We're just not in the position to do that today. What I want to do is one step at a time, get some ore through that mill, so then that we can demonstrate that this is all going to work. All the test work we've done, all the studies we've done, and then take it to the next level.
So give us some sense of that. Okay, let's move on to the good stuff. So I get it's a kind of complex history to this, and a lot of things have happened. but I think you are going to have to work on talking to the market and say, this is what we're going to do to kind of tidy up the housekeeping on that. And I guess when money comes in, it's a bit easier to have that conversation. But so let's move on to the positive side of things. So your 2015 PFS, what were the economics around that? I know you did it at $1,200, but at today's gold prices, give us a sense of what you think you can do.
So so the all-in sustaining costs back in 2015 was about $900 US, thereabouts. It should be a bit higher now. I think given that you're going to be mining more, because our cutoff grade will probably change. Like, we've done a lot of work internally, we just haven't gone out publicly with it. And the reason for that is because you have to go through it and do another 43-101, which is time and money. But again, you have to remember that, when the lenders out of New York put the first, when they signed up to put money into Gowest, there were still trees there. There was no hole in the ground. They brought in an engineering group out of the US to do the vet the project, and they saw it as a great opportunity, right? So again, losing the mill really impacted everything we were doing, right? And you couldn't change that. So if you look at the NPV at the PFS was about 27% at $1,200 US gold at an 87 exchange rate. Well, today at $2,000 Canadian gold, you're at least 100% IRR, if not more, given on the using the same all-in sustaining costs, right?
Okay.
So there's I mean, if you think about it, we've de-risked the project. Like, we're underground, we see it now. It's not just you're on surface drilling holes. What do you think it's going to look like? We're actually underground, looking at it, smelling it, feeling it, which we couldn't do 2 years ago, right? So it's a completely different. The de-risk is a lot more than it was, right?
No, I get it, and it's a reasonable grades as well, sort of around the 6 grams a ton sort of level.
Well, and sorry if I can add, Matthew, what makes it even more interesting is we're using ore sorting at the site. We bought an ore sorter, it's installed, and that takes the grade from about 4.5, 5 grams up to 8 to 10 grams. And again, we've done full production runs on production units, both by the two main manufacturers, and got similar results on both units. And at the end of the day, we're going to be, when we're mining at full production rates at about 1,000 tons per day, you're only going to be processing 500 to 600 tons. Again, if the price of gold goes to a certain level, probably process everything anyway and forget the ore sorter. But again, we've got that flexibility, right?
So tell me about what else you know from the PFS in terms of the size. You've got a resource on this thing, but what do you know in terms of the ability to get some scale to this? Because it's not, the resource isn't big, which is not a problem, because you're going to get going and then fund the growth. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the resource right now, it's a 900 meter strike length down to 800 meters of depth. That's the whole resource. The reserves are at about 450 meters. So you've got 277,000 ounces of reserves. And then also Stantec gave us credit for the mixed development ore. So the cutoff grade was 3 grams. The mixed development ore that's at surface was about 30,000 tons of it. It grades about 2.5 grams. But once you put that through the sorter, it'll get up to 4 to 5 grams. So then it has an economic, it's economically meets of a target. So the reserves 277, like if you look at the PFS, but the total ounces will be 305,000 ounces, because they give us credit for another 25,000 ounces, right? Working through the, where we are now, we've also drilled holes 1,200 meters and still found gold, but we didn't want to keep drilling. We really wanted to get underground and start drilling. And if you look back at some of our news releases, we did some drilling underground, and we found some pretty good grades. We think we have another zone to the north. And also the internal plan is the PFS was based on one ramp going into the middle of the deposit. Now we've got plans to got the main ramp, and then there's another ramp off to the west, and we'll start mining the west side at the same time. So we'll have a number of headings open up, and then we'll be able to get the tonnage up the tonnage. And this has all the footprints of typical gold mines in Timmins. I mean, they go deeper, they go wider, and they go for a while, right? So it's just the fundamental start.
And I've read all of those. I'm just stunned that you're at 13 million bucks. I literally don't get it. You've quite advanced. It's small, but I understand the model that you're employing. Others have done it. It makes sense. What do you think the market's not getting, or what are they worried about?
Well, I think first of all, it's been time, how long it's taken us to get to where we're at. So there's that question mark. I think some
are they just
people
bored? Are they bored of the story? Is that what's happening?
Possibly bored of the story. I think could be, and nothing against them. They've been good shareholders, but the Chinese control 42% of Gowest. Some people don't like that. I frankly, when we're running around looking for money, nobody wanted to step up. They stepped up, and they've been good. I mean, they haven't caused us any grief, and we work very closely with them, and they've been very supportive. That could be a reason. I'm just giving you reasons, my opinion, right? The third one is refractory gold. It's an arsenopyrite. It takes one extra step to process. People think, well, that might be complicated. It might not work, right? And all the test work we've done, and we've done oodles of it, it works, right? And just to touch on that for a minute, in the Timmins Gold Camp in northwestern Quebec, there's at least, various people have said there's at least 200 to 300,000 ounces of gold to be processed per year for the next 20 years in the camp. Newmont Gold Corp in Timmins, they've got about 2 or 3 million ounces of refractory gold. They just haven't touched it because they're all dealing with their free milling gold. But what I can tell you is that's starting to deplete, and they're starting to turn their attention to the refractory gold. So at some point, it's going to be the new it, right? It's going to be the refractory gold. So we're kind of leading the, and again, we're Gowest, a little company, like, what do these guys know, right? But, like I said, I've surrounded myself with some pretty smart people that have been involved in refractory gold, and they think, we're headed in the right direction.
Okay, so
save all the little problems we've had.
Yeah, well, look, you've been quite candid about that. I can't. I always like when people are just honest about the situation, and sometimes you're doing what you can do all the right things, but it doesn't necessarily work out, and I hear you on that one. But what are you going to say to people now? You've told me what you think they may be concerned about. What would you point them to? What's the one thing that you would point them to? We say, look, we're on this. We know, we acknowledge what's gone on in the past. We acknowledge what you think. Here's what we're going to do about it. What are you going to point them at?
Well, one of the things I'm going to do now is what I'm doing with you, right? Is get out and talk more about the story. Like, it was difficult over 18 months ago and say, well, we don't have a mill, and we might have a mill, and people just don't want to hear you, right? Frankly, and to my view is you can spend a lot of money, and really, what's it getting you at the end of the day? I think now, call it the bottom. We're at the bottom right now. And I think there's nowhere but up. And given that the mill is now really part of, Gowest doesn't own it, but it's with a friendly that wants to see us in the mill. I think, we're close, right? And I think by me doing this with you, and I'm going to do this with others, and I'm going to start getting on and talking about the positives now, as opposed to just regurgitating the negatives, and it may happen. This is going to happen. Like, when I've got the government pushing me to get the permits done, like, that means, they want us in there, right? And, I've got the Mayor of Timmins, I've got the, the ministers, like, they're all pushing to see this happen, because the mill hasn't really, the mill toll milled, some material for Osisko a couple of months ago on one of their projects. So the mill has run a little bit here and there, but it hasn't run full tilt for extended periods of time. Well, the city wants to see that running too, right? Creates jobs and opportunities. Same thing at the mine. Get the mine up and running, creates jobs and opportunities. So again, relationships with the communities, with the ministerials, we're on it now, right? I mean, I feel a lot better today than I did even 3 or 4 months ago, right? So
great, in the middle of a COVID epidemic. Excellent. But can I just say the two things I'd be looking for from you would be some kind of joint statement from the friendly owning the mill. Yeah. Right? And the second thing is to understand your ability to raise an appropriate amount of money to get this thing through to production, rather than piecemeal, 1 million here, 2 million here type fundraisers, and for it to go in the ground. If you can tell me and the market that, I think they understand you've got a good asset and potential for scale, but you need to be able to do that. Do you think you're going to be able to say that?
First of all, I believe it's going to happen. First of all, our largest shareholders have asked, can you go out and try and raise 25 million US? Okay, so I'm out right now humping around trying to do that. When you look at the loan, Pandy and PGB called the loan, thinking that we're coming in, it's ours to have, right? But the Chinese came back and they stood behind that, right? So they're not, when you stop and think about it, there's an individual who bought the mill. They put up $10 million last year, plus they put up the debt. They put up a lot of money, right? So they're not going away anytime soon. So I think they're trying to organize to see what they can do over, again, because things have been complicated everywhere, right? And I think either I'm going to find a way here, or they're going to come in and do something. Even if I find a little bit over here, I think they'll come in and put, match it or put the balance in, whether it's equity or debt or whatever it may be. So my belief, it's going to happen. They haven't spent all this time and effort and energy over the last 6 years just to watch it all sink down the toilet, right? So that's my personal view.
Greg, I hope you're right. Thank you very much for telling us your story. I love the honesty to it. It seems, if we park all that stuff aside, it seems quite a simple plan. You got to get that money, and you've got to start talking to the market. So we look forward to talking to you again. Pick up the phone if you've got something to say, because we'd love to talk to you.
Appreciate that, Matthew. Thank you for your time.